Hello everyone, welcome to episode 5 of the SUP Foil Downwind Journey series, where you follow my journey learning to SUP foil downwind and hopefully you get to learn alongside. In this episode, we're looking specifically at pump foil technique. I recognised it was a key skill that I needed to develop to improve the enjoyment and general success of my SUP foil downwinding missions, and I think many other people will be in exactly the same situation. In this episode, I head off to see my friend Ross, who coaches me through how I can improve my technique, but also gives me a really good understanding of the mechanisms involved with pumping and turning that energy within your body into forward motion on the foil. So this video is going to be really good for anybody looking to get into downwind SUP foiling, who maybe doesn't have much of a pumping background on a foil, but also might be useful for people who are getting into or looking to improve their pump foiling. Now, Ross is a really good waterman. He's a very experienced prone foiler now, regularly linking 4 or 5 waves out in the surf. He's just getting into SUP surf foiling to aid his own downwind SUP foiling journey. Added to that, he's a really very accomplished surfer, windsurfer and kite surfer. This video was filmed in the cold, wet and windy British winter, so apologies for the poor sound quality and some of the visuals aren't amazing, but hopefully we got some really great juicy information in there which you can all learn from. Let us know what you think. Let's get into it. Okay, so we're here today. We're going to do some flat water pump paddles, pumping, coaching. I've got my buddy Ross here. We've just had a surf. He's been telling me off on my technique, and we're going to come into the canal here and just give it a go. He's going to film me and we're going to try and analyse what's going on.
I think we get started, get in there, and then we've got a point to start from. A tendency Will's got is to keep his front leg straight a little bit, so we'll be working on that one as a starting point and then see where we go.
Yeah, so that's going to be all about foot placement, I guess.
Yeah, we're trying to get his legs a little bit closer together once he's up on foil, and also drive his weight down through the mast rather than porpoising, which is a problem a lot of people have, so we'll see how it goes.
Some real world feedback as we go. It's going to be good.
Absolutely, yeah. This is a good spot because you can literally stand along the side. Do you want to have a little pan along there, Will? Right the way along the side there, and you can track each other whilst you're foiling. So it's a perfect spot to give someone a bit of guidance on their pump game, on their technique. Yeah. And Will needs it. So let's get started.
Kit-wise, I'm using the Black Project Large Sprint X paddle, just about a shaker length overhead. That's what I've been really enjoying using for paddle ups at the moment. We've got the Armstrong APS 1675 with the Glide 220 tail, which I've put a 1/2 degree shim on it. 795 performance mast and the 100 litre KT Dragonfly, which is very slippery and very easy to paddle up, so let's just see what happens.
Could you just explain why you put shim in the tail, Will?
I've shimmed it normally, so I've flattened the tail to try and reduce drag.
More speed. Okay, so this will give you a little bit more speed. Might be actually, in that case, a little bit trickier then to get it up, but you're quite a competent paddler. A lot of us guys, we're just getting into flat water paddling, so we're adding an angle to our rear, to our tail, so that it gives us a little bit more early lift at the sacrifice of less top end speed. We're just trying to get up on most of the flat water paddling we're doing. We're getting into it, and therefore we need the early lift, is what we're thinking. But Will's a bit more competent paddler, so when he's up at speed, he's okay with the paddle up, but when he's up at speed, he wants to work on that pump. So it's a little bit different what Will's trying to do compared to what we're trying to do.
What I found on this board is that I don't have too much problem getting it up. It's staying up that's the problem. So therefore, changing the tail to shim to make it easier for pumping when I'm up, less easy for getting up.
So you're going for that by shimming it for a little bit more speed and flattening that tail out. You're going for a little bit more speed once you are up, and then low energy taps to keep you moving further distance rather than that low end grunt that you might reverse shim. So we're trying to assess Will's baseline skills here before we go into any detail. You can see he's really competent on the paddle up there, really efficient through the hips, very kind of purposeful paddle strokes, consistent cadence. When he transitions here into his pump stage, the board slowed down there, And you can see that his arms are kind of moving up and down a fair bit, but not having a great impact on a kind of forward projection. Just tapping the water there, kind of losing some efficiency. On this second clip, watch again Will, brilliant board speed through the water, gets himself up onto foil, and then his back foot actually moves forward here. That's helping his technique a little bit. We'll pick up that. Again, board speed drops, arms are going up and down quite a lot, but not really translating into a lot of forward projection speed. It's fairly high on the mast there, not in a bad position with the mast. And he's doing it, like he's going along and he could pump a fair distance. I mean, Will's doing downwinds at the moment, but we're trying to work on that the efficiency of that paddle so that he can go a bit further.
Now, for a bit of context here, I think it's worth me showing you Ross's technique. Ross is a really good prone surf foiler and can regularly link 4 or 5 waves out in the lineup. You can really see how he is using his technique and his body more efficiently to generate forward motion and energy in the foil. During our coaching session, I asked Ross to paddle around a little bit and show me his technique, and then we could kind of directly compare to the video that he'd shot of me. And it was really interesting because straight away I could see that there was elements of my technique, many elements of my technique that needed a lot of improvement. I could see how I was kind of hunching up my upper body and I wasn't really almost relaxed in my technique. And it gave me a really good basis to work on and to start to understand where I was going wrong.
Right, Will, so 2 runs in, what are your thoughts, what are your feelings?
And then I'm just trying to focus on letting the board glide down and then trying to get into some sort of rhythm with my to be able to lift my body, because I'm trying to deload the foil, aren't I?
Say you could probably bend your knees a little bit more and get that kind of concertina effect down through your body. Think about that back heel and make sure that you're lifting that back heel off of the board a bit. That's your indication, like, right, okay, I'm going for the weightlessness feeling. Okay, we'll give it a go. He's working on that weightless feeling. Doing a bit of kind of primate swinging with his arms there. I mean, you sort that out a little bit shoulders high. We'll have a chat with him. Any feeling of weightlessness on the top?
Got a couple there where I felt like I was just lifting and it felt right.
So starting to look a bit better, quicker through the water here. Will's still throwing his arms around a little bit and it's not translating into forward speed particularly well at the moment. However, he has got more speed. He is getting a little bit more weightless at the top of his pump, which is allowing the foil to run through the water a little bit more. It's not as slow as it was before. It's starting to lift his back foot. If you look at his front leg though, it's still quite straight. He's kind of got his hips back a little bit still got a straight leg. We were talking about that. That's kind of translating to still quite a lot of porpoisey motion in the board. Definitely looking better though. He's trying to keep a little bit higher on the mast there, which is always going to help with efficiency, but it's still kind of forcing his upper body, thinking he's kind of using his whole body as kind of compressing his whole body, but in actual fact when you look at it, it's still mostly just from his shoulders upwards that's being thrown up and down. Really got to use that compression right the way through his body so that you're getting full concertina effect down through his body into his legs and then pushing off from the bottom of his pump. So there's 2 things that are happening there to generate forward speed. His weight dropping down with compression and his feet pushing off of the board to throw him back up again.
At this point in the session, I realised that I really didn't understand the mechanism of how I needed to move my body to translate it into forward energy in the foil. So I asked Ross to explain it to me.
Yeah, so talking about the method of pumping, so we break it down like a little bit more granular levels. The analogy would be, strange as it sounds, would be like one of those ventilator concertina breathing machine things on a trampoline. So if you've got your trampoline bed there, ventilator there, as you compress down, and that means like through your knees, right from your shoulders, down through your torso, into your hips, down into your knees, and I mean in that order. So you're pushing down, your pressure then goes down into your knees, into your feet. That's at the very bottom of the pump. So as you're at the bottom of the pump, you then do that last compression on, a little bit more weight on your back foot, compress it off of the bottom, and as you're doing that, the foil is gone swung underneath you, is beginning to lift with you. You then gone very light, and then you're back on equal pressure on the top, so equal pressure on both feet, and that back foot has started to lift a little bit, and that's the telltale sign of that weightlessness on the top. And then you go back into, well, you let the foil glide, so that's where the glide is. Whilst you're weightless at the top, the foil's doing its thing, pushing through the water is a great feeling. And then back down into that concertina compression, down back onto the trampoline as your foil's kind of behind you a little bit, and as you go down, the pressure is a little bit more on your front foot, and then back on towards equal feet as the foil swings underneath you, and then back up again to the point of being weightless, and then back down again. So I think it's probably kind of that motion. I think it was Oscar likened it to doing an ollie on a skateboard, which is exactly true. So if I was to ollie, obviously you're trying to get your pressure tap on the back, and then back up weightless, and you come up with that front foot.
To get the wheels off the ground.
To get the wheels off the ground, and your feet want to be on your ollie, they want to be flat up in the air when you're standing on your board. So it's a really similar movement, because you're pushing down quite a lot of weight on your front foot actually when you're just about to ollie, and then back, equal pressure when you're at the bottom, and then way more pressure on the back foot on that when you're kicking the tail down, and then you come back up again. It's really similar.
Am I not doing any concertinaing then?
I think in your head you can think you're concertinaing,
But I'm probably not.
but the reality is you could do way more concertinaing. Yeah.
Okay, so if I go out and do another one, I concentrate on concertinaing like a ventilator.
Yeah, think about the ventilator on that trampoline.
Okay, I'll try and get into that rhythm.
So go even exaggerate the concertina a bit.
Yeah, okay. So when should I be doing that compress? As I'm gliding down, ready to expand as I get to the bottom?
So let's start weightless. That's like the best place to start maybe. So you start weightless. Your pressure into the foil begins from the top. So you're beginning that concertina, and I feel that the concertina starts at your shoulders. So it starts at the top and then goes down through your body into your hips, into your knees, and as that concertina increases, you're feeling the pressure in your knees and then off of your feet, and that's where you're pushing off of both feet equally, and then eventually you get back up to that weightless feeling.
Okay, let's give it a go.
So it took a little bit of time for what Ross was saying to really absorb into my brain, but after a few runs, you can see from this run, I was starting to really bend my legs more and work on that full body compression. It was really good to feel that I was making some progress. If we overlay the first clip of the day to this one, you can see the difference in the progress that I was making with that leg bending.
That one was better. Exaggerating the compression through your body, and you definitely did it. It was exaggerated, but it was like markedly you were getting more glide out of the wing because you had a slower pump cadence, and it just allowed the foil to actually glide rather than trying to put spiked input in.
You said rather than doing it spiked, like I was compressing and bouncing, just do it like a wave.
Yeah, so we were talking about, like, if we used to put a curve of like foot pressure, we were saying previously what you're doing was lots of pressure, no pressure, lots of pressure, no pressure, so it'd be like a jagged zigzag. Whereas what we were just saying then was, before you did your run, was actually it's more of a progressive amount of weight you're putting down through the foil, so increased weight at the bottom, and then weightless at the top, and then not much as you go down, obviously, because you're dropping, and then starting to increase it at the bottom, and then maximum foot pressure where you come off the bottom, and then back up to weightless, and obviously drops again. So it's actually more of like, what do you call it, a sine wave?
Sine wave, yeah.
Like that, if you're thinking about foot pressure down through your feet, as opposed to lots off the bottom, none on the top, lots on the bottom.
And what I found with that is it was way less cardio, because I wasn't going boom, 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 boom. I didn't feel as out of breath at the end of that run.
So at this point we decided to change from paddle ups to using the string. Will had done quite a lot of paddle ups, was getting a little bit tired, and also we wanted to get rid of that paddle to be able to absolutely narrow the variables down and just concentrate on pump technique rather than having the paddle, because it was putting him off his pump a little bit. His technique is a lot better here. He's beginning to like ventilate, essentially, pumping down from his shoulders through to his waist, and you can see him there quite nicely pumping from shoulders through his waist and then compressing down through his knees as well. A little bit off balance at times there, so he needs to work on his timing. Also, height of mast, he needs to work on his height of mast a little bit. Those arms are starting to come into play, like trying to force it up rather than compress up and push off the bottom, but definitely looking better on that run. Still, that front foot needs to come back. You can see his front legs, the nose is dipping down. It's also bending forward quite a long way there. If he gets his shoulders, we always say like get your bow tie on and get your head up, get your chin up when you're pumping, so that you're kind of stacked over the top of the foil rather than being bent over. So you started then on the string, really high-tech bit of foil equipment available at your nearest dealer. Yeah, you started on a glide. That's the good thing about the string, because you start on a nice efficient glide and it's lovely. It's like being towed behind a boat. Then you can think, you've got about a second, which sounds not very long but is quite a long time in foiling terms. You've got a second to set your feet and then go into the pump. So I'd absolutely recommend going on the string for someone who's trying to work on their pump.
Or behind a boat.
Or behind a boat. String's a bit cheaper than a boat, but like that's why I go for the string.
The one thing, we just watched that video over again, and I didn't move my feet together on that one, because I was in my getting going stance, which is wider, and I forgot to move my feet because that's part of my paddle process.
So it's a change of mindset from get the wave or get up on the string or paddle up, whatever you're doing, the power source. Second, move to your pumping stance and then begin the pumping phase. And it's like a different section of obviously what's going on, isn't it? I think. So in summary, I would absolutely, great session with Will, and I'd absolutely recommend getting a good friend that can offer you critical appraisal of your technique live, whilst you literally can have a go, come back, have a chat, and then they're standing there giving you feedback even as you're foiling. I'd absolutely recommend that to everybody. It's a brilliant way of condensing a lot of foil time into literally, I think this took about 2 hours of time on the canal here. So definitely, if you can do that, then do access a bit of flat water like that you can get a bit of feedback from. Secondly, I feel like there's been some progression from Will here, from his like inefficient arm movements at the beginning and not really transferring a lot of weight down through the foil. It's definitely got some marked improvement there. He is still a little bit hunched over, and he does need to work on his timing between upper body and pushing off the legs, but we've all got stuff to work on our technique, and we'll keep working with each other, giving each other feedback. Also, he needs to get a little bit higher on the mast. He could probably be a bit higher on the mast, as a lot of us could be, just to really work on that efficiency. But in terms of compression, I think he's beginning to do that more, and that's transferring into more forward speed through the water, which is obviously keeping up on foil for longer. So we'll see when he does his next downwind run how that's been for him. He's starting to get that front foot a little bit further back, but still relatively straight, that front leg, which means so if he brings that front leg back, so his feet are closer together and he finds the sweet spot on the board, a lot more of that from shoulders downwards through his body into his legs, a lot more of that compression is effective. Basically, rather than your leg being out like this and trying to pump your legs like this, and you can compress downwards more effectively. We were talking about a ventilator, and I think that's like quite a good analogy to use for it, really using your compression. Also, 2 parts of that pump. So the first part is your compression down through your shoulders and into your hips and into your legs downwards, but also not to forget that second part, which we're always working on, and that is that push of your legs. So you're applying a downwards force from the push off of your legs so that you get projected upwards into the weightless stage. With Will's technique, he is beginning to compress in his upper body and down through his legs, but still needs to work on that real conscious push off of the bottom to then project himself back up and then allow himself to glide. Absolutely brilliant experience. Thanks, Will, for the time to do it with you. I really enjoyed it. Hopefully you can do the same with me, and we can work on my technique. I think everybody would benefit from this process, from the pros right the way down to people that are literally just starting. Brilliant fun. Thanks very much, Will. And I hope that the video's been really useful to some people, and really happy to answer some questions about technique and, you know, what are your thoughts on it and what works for you and what could we do better here.